There we go. Perfect. So yes, full recording. Welcome to the Citizens Assembly Training Workshop. It's great to see you all here. I'll just give you a flavor of the day, and those presenting in the Nairobi Hub, please introduce yourselves when you're presenting. But just for an overview, this is really about understanding what is a citizen assembly and how can you implement it in your own cities to be useful towards sort of citizens engagement and citizens research and precision advocacy model. I'm flagging here that, so that broadly I'll do just a little background about what is a citizen assembly. Then the Nairobi Hub team will present on some of the practicalities of implementing that. We'll have some time in breakout rooms with your within your hubs to chat about what makes sense for you, what you learned, what questions you might have, and then we'll come back together to discuss that, see what we can learn from each other. I'm noting, if you see in the bottom right, there's a little, if you will see this little icon, the kind of 9-dot square, and the bottom right of your screen. You can either put your questions in the chat, or if you click that button, there's a Q&A option as well, and then we can store your questions, get to them at the end, or during the plenary, for example, but then we can store them and have them all saved. Oh, somebody just mute themselves. Amputan? Sorry, there's somebody just on the call.
Yeah, his name is Amputan. Your mic is on. Please, could you turn it off? Amputan Oluwayomi, your mic is on. Please, could you turn it off?
Or I don't know if Waziri, you have the powers that be.
The ability to do that, yeah.
All right, so let me carry on.
I'm not hearing from Masanson.
Oh.
Okay, she has no family.
Hello, Ayomi. You're not muted and we can hear you. All right. Okay, let's carry on. What is a citizens assembly and why are we here? So if you Google Citizens Assembly with an I, there's resources out there, and you will find this is a kind of concept that exists, and you can find lots of resources on that. And there might be other names for this. You'll see now, this is not going to be a completely crazy new concept. You might have other words for how we engage and come together. So just keep in mind that you've probably seen something like this, and we're going to go how this works for us in UrbanBetter. So am I still here? So Citizen Assembly, a participatory workshop, and we come together to discuss and create action on a particular topic. Particularly what makes it different is that we want a mini public. We want everyone to have an equal chance of being chosen to engage. We want the participants to reflect our community and those that we're seeking from. And we'll get some examples from Nairobi about how they did that and what that looks like. When we talk about citizens, for us at UrbanBetter with the Y, it is a citizen assembly, but incorporating our citizens' data, using it to enhance the precision advocacy model, highlighting youth voices is a really important part in UrbanBetter. And it might be a slightly shorter duration. If you look up a citizen assembly, they could go 4 or 5 days, they could go over months, but here we're going to be talking about sort of 1 to 2 day workshops, citizens assemblies. There's many places you could use it in the precision advocacy model. So it's here to enhance the work that you're already doing. Maybe you want to use it early on to engage with people in terms of creating hypotheses. You might have your data and you want to use citizen assemblies to create your messaging and your recommendations for your data. Or you might have campaigns and you've collected data from several places and you want to kind of do a next stage into policy and so on. And again, Nairobi Hub will describe some of how they've taken their hub, their assembly further. There's some steps that can be really helpful in terms of conducting a citizen assembly that the Nairobi Hub will talk to in terms of preparing, what to do during and after. And while this session is recorded and you'll have that, and we're also going to be developing a report. So this is all written down and you have that document to go back to and look at and get this information. So that will be following as well from this call. We're going to be talking about kind of one-off assemblies now, just because they're really great for getting your hubs into it. Also creating awareness, practicing, getting some of that information as a once-off. But thinking long-term in UrbanBetter, where we have this kind of goal of implementing it as embedding Citizens Assembly as a kind of systematic way in policy, in decision-making, so that it becomes part of the kind of fabric of making decisions. So here we're focusing on kind of just being able to learn how to do it, but do keep in mind the kind of long-term goal of embedding this kind of decision-making workshop going forward. I've thrown in the slide. It might seem random to most, but there's a project happening at UrbanBetter that's touching on some of these other workshops. So Citizen Assembly is about, so just to kind of flag differences, you might have heard some of these other workshops. Citizen Assemblies is about having this money public on complex topics. There's other workshops type that might focus on other things, and I've thrown the slide in for those working on this project to look at. For policy salons, where you might focus on policy, or design studios, where you have a multidisciplinary team to implement something specific. There's a slight difference between workshop styles, even though they're all workshops. And so we're focusing on Citizens Assemblies today. So I think that's all from me, just a very brief framing. And I'm going to throw, let me stop sharing. I'm going to throw, to the Nairobi Hub to introduce yourselves as you go along and to talk through your experiences. And just to reiterate, you can put your questions in the Q&A and in the chat, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. My name is Washera Thande, and I'm the current Nairobi Hub Coordinator. And I'm here supported by my team, who will go ahead and introduce themselves as they will be doing the presentation. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you guys get to learn something new. Over to you, team.
Thank you very much, Thande, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Nina, for sharing an overview of the Citizens Assembly. My name is Felice Chumba, and I'm standing as the chairperson of this corner, and also grand leader at the Nairobi Citizens Hub in Nairobi. Good afternoon. Regarding what has been mentioned regarding the topic of the discussion today, super glad to be on this particular session. And I'm going to give an overview of actually what ideally happened, what are some of the things that we undertook when we are setting up our Citizen Assembly here in Nairobi. And the following is what we came up with, especially during our last session, the Nairobi Citizens Assembly. This is just the case study of it. We had the theme of Hewa Safi, Tabora, Pamoja Tujenge Nairobi Yetu. In English, it's translated to Clean Air, Air Neighbourhoods. Together, let us build our Nairobi. So looking at why did we have even after the assembly, we are looking at the emergence from a critical gap. While cities increasingly collect data, especially on issues like air quality, those most affected by these challenges are often excluded from the decisions that follow. Air pollution, in particular, is not just a scientific issue. It is deeply tied to governance, equity, and everyday life reality. The UrbanBetter Nairobi Citizens Assembly was not just an event. It was a living civic infrastructure for urban transformation in Nairobi. What does this mean in this particular context? It is a structured space where data is demystified and shared openly. Residents, workers, and stakeholders are brought into the same room. Lived experiences are treated as equally valuable as technical evidence. Therefore, by combining civic lottery selection with targeted participation, the process ensures both representation and relevance, making it more inclusive than traditional forms that tend to favor only technical or institutional voices. Let us look into an overview of the purpose of citizens' assemblies. The purpose of this assembly is both practical and transformational in this particular way, especially the one that we had in Nairobi. One, we wanted to turn the data into action. What does this mean? To move beyond collecting air quality to actually using it to influence policies here in Nairobi, plans and interventions. Secondly, we wanted to create a center of community voices. What does this mean in length? To ensure that those most affected by urban challenges are not just consulted, but actively shaping the solutions that we'd want for our society and for a better Nairobi. Thirdly, among us, the purpose of Citizens Assembly and why we organized for hours for last year was because we wanted to bridge the systems and people into one basket. So what does this mean? To create meaningful dialogue between citizens and decision makers across public, private, and civil societies, breaking silos that often stall progress. Fourthly, to co-create solutions that stick, develop recommendations that are grounded in both evidence and reality, increasing their legitimacy, adoption, and long-term impact. So looking at this particular perspective, what makes this particular citizen assembly to be distinct amongst others? Unlike conventional consultations that feel extractive, citizens' assemblies are particularly by design and outcome-oriented in execution.
Sorry,
They position
Colin,
citizens as co-creators.
can I jump in for a second? Let
Yes.
Maxwell know when you're switching slides so that we can make sure we're on the same page as you. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Max, and thank you, Nina, for the heads up. So just to circle back into what has made the Nairobi Citizens Assembly to be very, very unique and distinct. Unlike unconventional consultations that feel extractive, citizen assemblies are practical by design and outcome-oriented in execution. They reposition citizens as co-creators, not just contributors. Secondly, we are looking into, in essence, the Nairobi Citizen Assembly was about power redistribution in urban governance, placing data in the hands of people, creating space for meaningful dialogue, and translating both into actionable solutions, more sustainable cities, especially for Nairobi. So that in a nutshell is just an overview of why we had ours in our last session, why did we have it in that special way, and why did we regard it as a very, very relevant and key activity, especially here in Nairobi, as our endeavors as we push for sustainable cities and as we push for clean air advocacy. Thank you. So Max, you can click onto the next slide, then the next round leader can pick it up from there.
Yes, thank you, Collins. Just confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, Ron, I can hear you.
Okay. So, yes, now we can go through kind of the pre-planning process of what went into the whole thing. And as you can see on the presentation, we needed to understand what a citizens assembly actually was, and KDI was really helpful with that. On call, we have Brenda, who was part of the KDI team, and she was really helpful. They had executed a similar thing in a smaller town in Kenya, but that set the foundation for what we were to implement in the Nairobi Citizens Assembly. And also another important thing was building political will and institutional support. So to help with that, we made sure that we aligned with the Nairobi's evolving air quality action plan. And how we did that was to consult officials from the Nairobi City County, lead technical advisors of the air quality action plan, and national regulators, such as NEMA, which is the National Environment Management Authority. And I did mention that KDI was really instrumental in helping us establish the foundation for this. And they also helped, they formed a part of the steering committee that was in charge of planning for this process. Max, next slide, please. Okay, so the steering committee, essentially, it's largely comprised of the urban veteran leaders, but you also had participation from KDI, we had participation from Clean Cooking Association of Kenya and the Kenya Green Building Society, just to make sure that we covered all our bases. And what this steering committee oversaw, as you can see in the slides, is stakeholder mapping. We made sure Nairobi has 17 sub-counties. We made sure that in our selection of participants, all these sub-counties were represented in one form or the other. So we made sure that we had county reps, youth groups, CBOs, INGOs. We just make sure that they're all represented so that we can get a more comprehensive outlook of how the situation is on the ground. And we sent communication to certain strategic key stakeholders that we needed in the room, in addition to,
Sorry, Ron, you've muted yourself. We can't hear you.
Not internally, so that.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. I hope you didn't lose me for long. Maybe you can just inform me how long ago you lost me.
Please start from the last point you were making.
Okay. So I was talking about the marketing and branding, which was all done internally. So the essential point I'm trying to drive here is there was collective ownership from the RAN leaders and the steering committee at large. So the concept note was drafted by us so that we can all understand what is happening. We can all be on the same page. We did all the marketing and branding. And another important point to consider, we know that UrbanBetter does activations, but for the specific purpose of this Citizens Assembly, we did 2 mini activations. I don't know if it's in the next slide. Max, you can just scroll to, I think I've already mentioned that. Just scroll to the next one. Yeah, so we had 2 mini activations planned in anticipation for the Citizens Assembly. One was focused on an industry heavy area, I can call it, and another one was focused on a more transport heavy, where there's high traffic. And generally what we got is in the industry sector, or the section which we mapped out that was industry heavy, we got an average PM reading of 28, which is way above the recommended WHO levels. And on the transport emission side, we got an average PM 2.5 reading of 15. The stretch wasn't as long as the previous ones that we usually do the main activations. So the industrial emission side, we did a 6-kilometer walk, where we just did it as RAN leaders and certain key stakeholders. We tried to make it small and compact so that we also don't spend a lot of time and resources into it, but we also try to make it as valuable as possible for the results to be impactful when we're discussing it during the activation, or rather the Citizens Assembly. So that is basically what we had put together by the time we started the Citizens Assembly, which I think now Dahran can take us through. Over to you, Dahran.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me. If you can hear me, please give a thumbs up. Thank you. My name is Dahran. I am a run leader with the Nairobi Citizens Hub. I was part of the team that was responsible for the whole Citizens Assembly and the post-assembly process. And I am going to be walking you through how, our day was structured and how we translated discussions beyond the room even. So, when we talk about air quality, we focus on the data, what is measured and what is reported. But the more important question is, who gets to act on the data, who is left out of decisions that follow. So then the Citizens Assembly was designed to close that gap by bringing the evidence and the lived experience into the same space to shape actionable solutions. So on that day, the process followed a clear structure. We moved intentionally from understanding to action. So we started with a welcome and an icebreaker, and this wasn't just a procedural thing. It was more about building psychological safety, so that everyone in the room was able to feel was able to feel comfortable to speak. What's not happening?
I think Max
Okay.
dropped out. Yeah,
Right.
okay, we're back.
I'm just going to continue. So that everyone would feel comfortable to speak up and contribute, regardless of their background. And then from there, we moved into learning and presentations. So we had expert insights. We combined that with findings from our mini citizen science activations, the ones that Ron was talking about earlier. And importantly, we didn't just simplify this information, we made it also accessible. And the topic was around transport and industrial pollution, so that the participants could engage with that meaningfully. Now, we moved into breakout deliberations. This was the core of the Citizens Assembly. So in small groups, people gathered, they explored the causes of air pollution in their own contexts, in their own lived realities. And then we discussed possible interventions, and we also examined the role of citizens, the government, and the private sector. Everyone was in the same room, sitting side by side, deliberating. And then these discussions fed into a proposal development. The ideas were captured into in real time, refined collaboratively, and then we prioritized this through a voting process, just to ensure that, the final recommendations were not just opinions, but also something that is actionable and collectively supported. And then we closed the day now with reflections. Participants were able to share feedbacks and commitments. The focus was on ownership. People were not just consulted. Everyone was in the room, shaping outcomes. So everyone felt like they owned this. And then something that I don't want to leave out that guided the entire process. We didn't just rush into solutions. We made sure that everyone that was in that room that day was grounded in the evidence first. Then we moved into deliberation. And then only after that is when we went into recommendations. Next slide, Max. So, Max, next slide, please. Thank you. This was not the end point. Now, after that event, we focused on continuity and, accountability. We didn't just stop that. We shared thank you messages to maintain engagement with the participants, all the stakeholders that were there. And then everyone that was there, we compiled a full report. We have a report that documented the whole process and the outcomes. And then just to extend the impact beyond the room, we also shared the key insights across social media platforms. We made the live stream publicly available. We had a live stream. So as we kept on talking, people were making presentations, the experts were talking. We had a live stream that people could even join on in. So it wasn't just like, you didn't have to be physically present to be there that day. And more importantly, the recommendations were now consolidated. We put it into a civic action blueprint, and we formally submitted it to the Nairobi County Environment and Transport Committees. So the key takeaway here is that, you know, this Citizens Assembly was not just an event. It was a transition point between data that we keep on collecting, and now decision making, you know, between community voice and policy action. So what we were building was not just participation, but a system, you know, where lived experience was treated as a very valid evidence, and where citizens were not only heard, you know, but they were actively involved in shaping the decisions that, you know, affect their own environment and health. And then after that, we had outcomes, and I'm going to let Max pick up from here. Thank you. Max, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darren. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Maxwell. You can call me Max. I am one of the UrbanBetter Nairobi Citizens Hub run leaders, and I will be taking you through the key outcomes and lessons learned from the Citizens Assembly. Give me a minute. All right, yeah, we can proceed. So yeah, so what you're seeing on your screen right now is some of the outcomes from the participants who recommendation that came directly from the participants and not from us. We can say that they were deliberate and refined, and also voted on in the room. Basically, they represented what Nairobi residents' own vision for the city. So yeah, all the six clusters were submitted, proud to announce, to the Nairobi County Environment Department and Transport Committees, which fed directly into the Nairobi Air Quality Action Plan. So as you can see, for an example of recommendation is strengthen policy enforcement, where Kenya has strong environmental laws. The gap is in enforcement. So participants called for co-governance, not just consultation. I will go to the next slide. All right. Still on the key outcomes, but this time is lessons learned from the steering committee, aka run leader to other run leader. So lesson number one that was learned, and I would say is what we really learned as number one was to structure teams before we start, structure teams early. So assign roles before planning begins, avoid ambiguity, since ambiguity slows everything down, and you know, without a coordinator and a clear and leader responsibility, just know that nothing will get done. So you just structure the teams early. As my colleague Ron had mentioned, the steering committee each had someone who was in charge of this, 1, 2, ABCD, ABCD. So structure teams early. Number two is representation equals legitimacy. Representation is legitimacy. So if communities don't see themselves in the room, they won't trust the outcomes. So our lottery plus targeted selection approach made the assembly credible. So the lottery plus targeted selection really worked on our side very well. Number three is mini activations at the anchor for the assembly. So your local data makes deliberations real. So without it, the assembly is just a talk shop. collect evidence first, which you can come and present to the community. So without it, the assembly is a talk shop, and collecting of evidence before we convene is very key. That was a really important lesson, and we found out later that the mini activations really played a part in passing information to the participants of the Citizen Assembly. Number 4, we have document everything always. So be it the minutes, the WhatsApp, the attendance list, all media files. You see, like literally without the media files, without the picture, we couldn't have had any media to use, for example, for this presentation, or when making reports, when you have a presentation with the legislature. So everything matters, and all of it matters for accountability. Everything. Then at number 5, we have sorry.
Sorry, Max, that was just noise. You can go ahead.
Okay, all right, it's okay. Yeah, number 5 is post-assembly is where the impact lives. So the event is not the endpoint, and report writing, just as I said, documenting everything, policy submissions, media coverage, follow-up advocacy. That is where the change actually happens. So that I'd say are our top 5 most learned lesson. And I'd also like to add on a few pointers, 5 pointers that did not make it to this slide. We should have made it more like advice to the other hubs, advice to the other hubs, which in some sort of way intersect with what I've just said about lessons that we've learned. So advice number 1 is adapt activations to your cities. Adapting activations, the mini activations to your city, be it Johannesburg, Bogota, Accra, Lagos. So run mini activations relevant to your city's biggest data gap. Air quality, mobility, waste, flooding, whatever your community needs evidence on. So just ensure you adapt activations to your city. That's advice number 1. Number 2 is build political will early. So engage the local government before the assembly, after, but before the assembly. Make sure you've engaged them. And if officials are already invested in the process, your recommendations will have somewhere to land 100%. Number 3 will be the nitty-gritties when it comes to logistics, venue, accessibility, support. For our assembly, for our Citizens Assembly, I remember we couldn't accommodate everyone. So what we did was also have a hybrid session, which others who were not able to make it were able to join and also contribute. So accessibility support, food, of course. So that is just the nitty-gritties you should also look about when it comes to the logistics. People tend to maybe assume the minute logistics, but they play a huge part when it comes to running the whole function, the whole assembly. Then share your learning. These should be even at number 1. Publish your report, share the tools that you've used, connect back to the regional or global citizens network, and our collective learning compounds when each hub builds on the last. And I think I will go now to the next slide, which is the replicable system. So you can use our model as a starting point. Of course, we can also modify it, you can also modify it in ways that work for you, but adapt the roles to your hub size as always, but always keep the coordinator and the run leader framework when it comes to conducting a citizens assembly. Someone needs to own the whole, and others need, to own some of the parts when it comes to deliberating roles. So I will give maybe a minute. Those who are screenshotting this to screenshot. We'll probably maybe share this slide. But yeah, I'm going to the next slide, which is thank you. And if you have any questions, wait. I think I will, before we go to the questions, I will go to Brenda, right?
Max.
Yeah, I'll go to
Yes,
Brenda.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Max, and the other leaders. Thank you for the presentation that you've given us. So I'm quickly going to introduce Brenda Ngoya. She was a previous Nairobi run leader, the previous Nairobi Hub coordinator, who's going to give us a few reflections on her end, especially based off of the first citizen assembly that she organized in the small town that Ron mentioned in Embu, Kenya. So Brenda, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm always excited to talk about anything participatory democracy, and citizen assembly and climate assembly being part of participatory democracy is I'm always excited about talk about that. So anyway, my name is Brenda Ngoya. I'm an urban designer based in Nairobi, and had a privilege to do a training session under People Powered on running a participatory democracy. And other participatory democracy, there are various ways you can implement it. So climate assembly, citizen assembly is part of it. There is participatory budgeting. But for us, we are focusing on the citizen assembly. But also I've had a privilege to lead and implement alongside teams, climate assembly in Embu, and leading the citizen assembly last year for Nairobi Hub. And I think I'll spend like 4 minutes just maybe giving practical example, especially when we were implementing this, using example for both assemblies in Embu and in Nairobi. And I'll just be piggybacking on what has already been said, because they've done a great job summarizing all the key things that you guys would need to know before you implement a citizen assembly. And one of the things that I'd like to highlight is clarity on the topic. I think that is a very important thing. We had a sit down, just thinking and brainstorming what the assembly should focus on. And with the clarity on the topic, that will make the planning easier, will help determine the kind of stakeholders that you need, will help you, will make even the design of the entire assembly easier, because it will also inform the kind of the activations you'll do for the assembly. So that's really important. Also, making the topic a bit easier to understand. Since this is an assembly, you want everybody to understand. Like, you wouldn't want to use hard words as the topic of the assembly. So that's really important. Another thing to insist on is the political will. An example I can give is we had a privilege when we were implementing the climate assembly in Embu. We were riding on an already political will that we already had. We had an ongoing project there. So it was easier for us to introduce a climate assembly after the project was done. For this, for the citizen assembly in Nairobi, we knew we will implement a citizen assembly just when the hub was starting. So in all our activation, in all our meetings with county, we used to insist, like, oh guys, we have a citizen assembly coming, so we'd like you to be there. So if you go in a meeting with somebody official, just mention it for them to be in mind. Another thing is it's really important for them to be part of the steering committee. During the climate assembly, we were able to have the county government part of the steering committee, because we really had a very strong political by then. But for Nairobi Assembly, it was really hard to get them to commit to be part of the steering committee. So that's one of the things I'll encourage you to try, because government people at sometimes they are very very slippery. So you please try to make them be part of the steering committee to help them plan and everything, so that the implementation of the buy-in of the recommendation that will come out to be able to translate to something else. Another thing I like to insist is on the selection process. I remember the first time we were implementing the climate assembly, especially in Embu, we had a very long conversation on the selection process. You know, this is not something that you can implement everywhere. Like, the selection process cannot be something like it's not applicable to every hub. So you have to really think about the selection process. I can give an example for Embu. For Embu, we were tackling a land problem, and we knew land problem is a very critical thing that people get agitated about. So we wanted very specific people in the room, like the landowners to be part of the room, like key people to be part of the room. But for the Nairobi Citizen Assembly, it was a bit easier because we used the already existing structures. Like we said, there is this amount of sub-counties. So we want maybe this amount of this number of people to be part of the assembly. But another thing I want you to explore is doing public, going physically, inviting people door to door. A lot of assembly have done this, and it has a lot major impact. Like knocking, if you want people for this area to be part of it, go knock to their doors, invite them. Those who will respond will be part of it. During the assembly, we had a privilege to have very dedicated team. I think that's very important. Max has already mentioned it. Like dividing work to different people really helped. But also, I'll urge you to be very open-minded, because things really change fast. You'll get an expert who committed to be part of the assembly, like canceling last minute. So you have to be creative and see, like, what can we do? Another thing is, if you invite, let's say, an expert from the government, they'll only appear for a very few moments. So you have to be, let's say, you will want them to contribute on the conversation that will go further. So you request maybe part of the speaking notes, like let them get recommendations out right there, and then they don't have to wait until the assembly is over during that session. Also, be aware of the audience you have. Try to anticipate the things that might happen during the assembly. I can give you an example. During the climate assembly in Embu, we knew land is a very critical topic. People might get agitated. We had a mediator come in, and actually it was agitated, and the mediator really helped. Every time people were getting very rowdy and everything, the mediator really helped us calm the crowd. Another thing is be intentional on the type of speakers you'll want to be part of the experts panel. You can't just be bringing anybody that is in the space of air quality. Like, think about what would you want people to know, because the assumption is you're bringing people to learn, to make informed recommendation, to develop capacity. So just think about the intentionality of the whole assembly before you select the speakers. And you can have a separate session with the speakers, like just before the assembly, you can just have a session, explain the topic, and tell them this is what we want, this is what we are requesting you to talk about. Please focus on this. You have this amount of minutes. I think that's really important. And another thing, insisting open-minded. For a citizen assembly, we had a featuring process inside it. So it's not like a very rigid process, like, yes, follow this, but be able to adapt to your hubs. Like, make sure it's making sense to your hub, it's able to work in your hubs. And another thing to close is, I understand different hubs are working in different things, and assemblies are very, I think for us, maybe it was, since it was the first year we are implementing it, maybe it was a bit heavy to implement it. So we had a dedicated month for it. Like we knew this month we are not putting anything else. We are just planning the citizen assembly, because it's just like planning a very heavy workshop, because you'll have to think about logistics. You want every resources to go there, and you want everything to be perfect. So yeah, I think those are my main experiences that I will share. Yeah, I'm open to if you really have any questions to ask, you can ask me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. We can all give a round of applause by clicking on the clapping emoji. Thank you so much, Brenda. So I hope we've all learned something new. Brenda, if you're okay with it, you can leave your contact details on there for people to contact you, or we can come up with a different way of people contacting you. Now I'm going to hand over to Nina, who will continue with the rest of the session.
Sure. Thank you so much to all the presenters. That was really informative, and I think there's so much value to learning from people who've actually done it and have learned lessons, and we can learn from them. Just before we go into breakout groups, to give yourselves a chance to think about how this might work within your hubs, and Waziri, if you're able to sort of start setting up breakout groups. Are there any burning, we'll have a chance to come back together after the breakout rooms, but are there any burning questions at the moment that you'd like for our facilitators? The floor is open in terms of participatory. Am I seeing any hands? Ishmael?
Good evening, good afternoon to you all. That was an amazing presentation by all the run leaders. My question is, did they face like any sort of challenges, and what are the strategies that they have used to overcome those challenges? Thank you so much.
I didn't quite catch that. Did any of the run leaders,
Yeah.
or do you want to repeat that? Ishmael, just a little slower. Repeat your question.
Yeah, please, Ismail. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know if you guys are able to hear me. Can anyone confirm for me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just repeat the question a bit slower.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my question is, to the run leaders, thank you for that amazing presentation. So my question is, did they do you guys face, any major challenges, and how do you overcome them? Thank you.
Okay, so major challenges. Gahran, do you want to take that?
Yeah, in regards to the Citizens Assembly Day, yeah, one of the major challenges that we faced was balancing the different types of voices in the room. We had participants from the community, from community groups. We had the government, we had people with technical backgrounds. And naturally, of course, some voices carried more confidence, or authority than others. There was like a very real risk that the discussions could be dominated by a few individuals. And just to address it, we were very intentional about facilitation. So we used breakout groups, and also we used structured prompts, to ensure everyone had space to contribute. Just creating psychological safety early on helped level the participation. Yes, that's one challenge I'd speak about on the Assembly Day.
Any other facilitators want to talk about a challenge they had? And we'll go to breakout.
Yeah, I think I can just briefly mention what Brenda had mentioned previously. People committing to come, especially subject matter experts, and then not showing up or bailing out at the last minute. And the recommendation we would give, or I would give, would be, if you map out your stakeholders in terms of categories, make sure you have more than one person under one category, under each category identified, so that even if you just need one, you have another one on standby just in case something happens to the first one. So yeah.
Great. Any other burning questions before we break? Rukaya?
Okay. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the amazing run through. So my question is, how were you able to possibly capture the interest of the locals? Because I mean, a lot of times people feel like, I mean, how does it concern me and all of that? So like, how did you capture their interest such that, you know, they are able to attend? Thank you.
Great question. Who wants to go for it? Brenda?
Okay, I'll answer that. To capture the interest of the local, I think during the activation, we tried to engage the public to get opinions during the, like, get the opinions right. Like we were telling them this is an assembly, this is the topic. What do you think about this? That was one way. You remember we also did the selection process, and people had to kind of apply. So during the application, we had a feedback session, like, oh, if you get a chance to be part of this assembly, what are some of the key things will you want to talk about? That was another way. But also a good thing is Daran mentioned, like during the breakout rooms, breakout groups, people are more open to talk about the things they want to be part of the assembly. So yeah, I think those three things really helped. Yeah.
Thanks. One more question, if there's any, before we break. Any hands? Yes, Taha, do you want to go?
Not a question. I just want to add to what Brenda said. So, Rukaya, just to help you a bit more, and just add on to what Brenda said, you know, we also worked on how we framed the invitation itself. So instead of positioning it as a technical workshop, you know, we framed it as, we called it a space where community voices directly shape decisions on air quality and city planning. And that shift from being informed to being part of decision making mattered a lot for motivation. So a lot of people showed up because of that. I mean, it helped.
That's really great. Yeah. Any last questions? Floor's open. All right. If no questions, then Waziri, are you able to put in breakout rooms? That's
Yes, Nina.
so.
Yeah.
1 second before you do. So I'm turning my camera off instead of. So I'm going to do it as. Am I sharing my screen? Let's see. 10 minutes, just so framing of the breakout rooms. 10 minutes, just to discuss what would work in your context. What are the kind of things you'd need to think about? What barriers, local consideration might affect participation? Are there any specific groups? So it's just a bit of time to, you know, you've got this information. What questions do you have, and what kind of actions do you think you could take within your own setting? And have those questions, reflections noted so that we can share in the plenary. But yeah, Waziri, good to go when you are.
Okay, yeah. So this is going to be according to our hubs. Yeah, then we have 4 hubs here. We have the Accra Citizens Hub, the Nairobi Citizens Hub, and the Lagos Citizens Hub. Then there's the Joburg Citizens Hub. So I have tried to put everyone according to the hub that they represent. And I put some neutral people like Molly and Nina in the Joburg Citizens Hub. So we could have this discussion. Your rooms are timed. So after 10 minutes, you are going to be brought back to the main call. So Yeah, to the main call, yeah. So I'm going to open the rooms now.
Great, thanks, Waziri. And will you stay in the main room to make
Yeah.
sure everything? Great,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
Hi, Waziri.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, Yukai.
Hi. Is there a Joburg? Is there a Joburg? I joined the Joburg one, but no one is in it other than me and Molly and one other person.
Oh, I had added Sophile and Co to that group.
Is it?
Let me see what's
'Cause I
happening. Let me.
had to exit it so that I could come and. Is Tyler? Because I saw Tyler in the main call.
Let me see what's happening. I had added Sofile and I saw Mavinha.
Is it? Okay.
I wonder what happened. They are. Let me see. Yes. So Pili is supposed to be there, and
Okay,
even
let me see what's
Mavinha.
happening. Let me see what's happening.
Okay. Oops.
I'm not sure if everyone's back yet, but we're mid-question in the Lagos group, so I might call on to question here. So just
Tyler.
we have this time together. But
sorry, Nina. Tyler. Okay. Maybe
thank you,
that's
Waziri. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. And hi, everyone. I just maybe wanted to find out, particularly from the Nairobi Hub, if they would be interested in a more extensive, maybe like workshop with us or a meeting that we can discuss, because I think it's not enough time here in the training. So maybe if we can maybe have another call where we can discuss more extensively. Thank you.
I think that's a great suggestion. I think it would be good like if we did like individual hub per hub, and if we organize ourselves on that scale. I don't know, Nina, how feasible that is, but if we do like an hour per hub, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and remember there will be written reports as well to kind of go back to. I don't think that, you know, we still need the kind of talking to the team, but it's really up to Nairobi and their availability. But that would be great if they are able to do that.
Since 10 minutes is over, yeah.
So we have some time together now just to reflect and ask questions. Can I ask? In the Lagos group, there was a question busy happening as we came back.
Okay, that would be me.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. So I was asking, my question was, I was saying, with respect to Lagos, right? When we engage some of our stakeholders here, we engage like the organization. It's not like we engage each person. It's not like the personal engagement where we say, oh, we're talking to, just like, let's say I'm approaching Waziri alone as a person. I more or less engage UrbanBetter as a group, right? Yeah. So now in a situation whereby you engage a group like that, and then what they do mostly in Lagos is to probably delegate people to come for it, right? And let's say they pick 2 people and they just come in and there's something comes up and they are leaving. How do we tackle that situation? Because now I think Master mentioned, it wasn't Master, I don't know who mentioned, involving 2 or more stakeholders from the sector. That way, there's somebody to still stay to the end if something comes up. But in a situation like, because I think the last we had a workshop regarding our free trainings recently, and then we had some stakeholders coming, but they couldn't even stay. They couldn't stay before the actual session began. Right? It was more like they just came to mark attendance, for lack of a better word, right? So how do we treat this? How do we navigate this, especially when we really need those people in such a session for them to actually really contribute, because we feel maybe they really have something we can cling to. Thank you.
It's another tricky challenge. Anyone from the Nairobi Hub who'd like to engage in that question?
Yeah, I should perhaps speak on this before. I mean, if there's anyone that wants to add anything. That's a very interesting question. I wanted to speak on this because I was at that particular workshop. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's like a general. It's a general question, honestly. And these people were from the government. Actually, they came from a government institution, and they hadn't really stayed long. And they said something came up. Their boss wanted them, and then the both of them left. Personally, what I feel is that, I mean, when something happened, then you can take your lessons from it. So what I felt could happen is that when writing letters, invitation letters for such meetings or a citizens assembly or a stakeholders workshop, then perhaps it should be stated there that we are looking for someone that will be that has the capacity or that will be committed to stay, you know, throughout the workshop. You know, perhaps something like that should be stated there so that people can, so that these organizations can note this and then send people that can actually stay till the end. At least if you're inviting 2 people, 1 person should be able to stay behind. Yeah, that's far as I know. So if there's anyone else that wants to add anything to this, Max, I saw your hand up. Did it go back down?
Yeah, sorry, it went back down. I actually forgot what I was going to add, but it's coming. It's about where do you draw the line between selecting, when you're selecting, not even, yeah, when you're looking for stakeholders, the right stakeholders to invite for a citizens assembly. And maybe this is something we can maybe think about when we are going on about, like, where do you draw the line of importance? Like, is this the right person I invited? Yes, he or she is at the citizen assembly or works with the legislators, but are they able to help what you're trying to achieve with the citizens assembly? So yeah, my thing was basically, where do we draw the line when it comes to that? It's something you can think about. Yes. Yeah, I'm done. Yes, Oshera.
I think to add on to that, one thing that really helped is that we actually didn't, okay, I don't know according to the people who are planning, but there wasn't that many high-level government officials. The people who are there were people who work on like the ministerial level, whose work is actually to go for such forums. So I think that's one of the reasons why we had people from like the county government, from the Environment Agency, and other places. I think another thing that would also help is if you invite other like government organizations or international organizations. For us, we invited UN Habitat, who were able to come, and I think that usually gives a bit more of a credibility for them to attend. So it's like one of those things where you balance that relationship of ensuring that you're getting people on a ministerial level or like on an agency level, and then also seeing how you can leverage off of relationships that you've made with other international organizations that have heavy names that would potentially influence the decision of these people to come. Yeah. Go ahead, Collins.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Those wonderful remarks. So on my side, I think we need to have it in an overview so that different hubs can actually borrow what kind of sectors, what kind of strategic stakeholder in political mapping that are being used for the assembly hubs. So this is what I'm thinking about. So one, we do have formal authority, and I'll just give, let's say, an overview, and then I give a role. Then different hubs will see, according to their markets, according to their hubs, who can play this particular role and who can deliver that particular function. So number one is formal authority. These are actors who determine whether ideas move from dialogue to policy. Number two, hidden gatekeepers, often overlooked but essential for translating ideas into real-world change. I'll give an example of these ones. Environmental regulators, transport authorities, urban development control agencies. The third is trust infrastructure. Participation only works if communities trust the process. Who are these key groups? We have grassroots organizations, CBOs, informal settlement leaders, faith-based institutions, youth networks, and activist groups. Reason being is these are groups that are very granular in the sense that they are at the grassroots level and they can translate that narrative from office meetings, from boardroom meetings to a more granular approach on matters ground in the sense that the grassroots would understand. Fourthly, fourth category is a credibility layer. These assemblies need to balance lived experience with credible data. These are the following: the universities and research institutes, public health experts, data scientists, urban labs, and think tanks. Next is the implementation powerhouse. Who are these? The private sector and the economic actors. Urban systems are deeply shaped by market forces. This includes transport operators, whether informal or formal, industry players contributing to emissions, real estate developers, business associates, because they move them into implementation powerhouse. Next, we have the perception power, looking at different hubs. Assemblies succeed when they shape public discourse. These are who are these inclusive, local journalists and media houses, digital media content creators, civic storytellers. Next, we do have acceleration layers. We need insiders who carry the outcomes forward. Who are these? Political champions and influencers, reform-minded politicians, senior technocrats, policy entrepreneurs within the government of the day. So that is, in a nutshell, the categorization and the strategic powerhouse of from the beginning in terms of an ideology to a policy or into action, noble results in the end. Yes.
Thank you. That's great. I'm going to ask for reflections on each group, but I don't know if Immaculate, there was raised earlier that you were part of the process, and I don't know if you had any extra thoughts that you wanted to share, if you're still on the call.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
I think for me, I'd just give a few recommendations, and one of them, it will be the development of the steering committee. It's very important to have a committee behind all this because it entails a lot of work and a lot of commitment. And I think everyone's role should be outlined very well in co-designing the whole process, defining and the whole general guiding direction. For Nairobi, I think the presenters already mentioned that we had done different activations, but for the specific assembly, we also did 2 mini activations. So maybe the other hubs can also use that. And timing is very important. Nairobi Citizens Assembly happened at a very crucial time because the Nairobi Equality Action Plan was just in that process, and also the African Clean Air Forum was just in that same phase. So it was very good timing because the findings were able to be presented to those forums, which were very crucial. I think those are the only additional things I can put.
Thanks, that's great. We're coming near the end, so I'll do a whip around I think it was 4 hubs that were here, and just any rep who wants to give just one reflection, either a question or something that they think they'd adapt or want to do in their setting. So I'm going to call someone from Accra. Do you want to share something? No shyness. Yeah, go for it, Lord.
Yeah, Jacob was trying to raise his hand. During the breakout room, he mentioned something quite highlighting that I think would be beneficial to us if he shares, or maybe Hilda. Yeah, Jacob or Hilda. Yeah, Hilda.
Quick reflection, Hilda.
Is she still on the call?
Otherwise, we'll go to Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob. Jacob is on the call. Yeah, Jacob. Yeah, please speak.
Yeah, so we would like we'll try the community dialogues that they did. And some of the challenges here in Accra is the language diversity and the local perception of the pollution in the country here. So we would have to talk to them and educate them on how these old ways aren't good for their health and how they can improve it. But then we'll have to do it in their local language where they would understand, because not everyone here speaks the same language. And for the engagement, we don't necessarily need to invite key stakeholders in the country to show up at our activations. We just need some local people from the local government, since they are the ones directly involved in the communities, and then they see what's going on and they face all the challenges in the environment. So yeah, that's what we came up with. I'll be working on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good local considerations to happen. Joburg?
Not so sure if anyone else from Joburg would like to go, but I think just from my side and just a reflection from our group is that I think it's easy for us to focus on the things that could go right rather than the things that could go wrong. So I'm just interested in learning more about, just the blind spots and what to look out for. So that's why I'm just more keen on having maybe an extensive session with the Nairobi Hub. That's it from me. Thanks.
Great. And Lagos?
Okay, for Lagos, it's really been great hearing about the anticipatory technique, where even during our normal activations and campaigns, we mentioned to people that we have something coming up, which is the Citizens Assembly, and we would love them to be a part of it. And also what Dahran mentioned around letting people know that it is not just a random conversation. It is an engagement that allows your voice to be heard in the room, basically, and balancing power and forces in the room. And yeah, the mini activations, it's going to really be very, very helpful in the Lagos context, considering the clean air training area that we're trying to achieve. So I think that's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your engagement through this whole one. I agree, we can't learn it all in an hour and a half, but it's great to have that conversation and know where we can go for help and resources. Maybe I should put my email. So the report that we'll be writing, co-writing with Nairobi Hub, is not yet done, but if you need to see the draft before it's finalized, just because you're doing a Citizens Assembly sooner, then please email me and I'm happy for you to have a look. And then we'll also can discuss with Nairobi Hub representatives about having more in-depth meetings and trainings for your hub. But a few more minutes. Any last questions before we close? Looking around the rooms for any hands? Anything?
Yeah, I don't see any hands. Let me shoot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more like a comment rather than a question. Yeah, it's an important point that you raised, Jacob. Where you have a place where people speak, there are different ethnicities where people speak different languages. I think it is important for us all to note that this is just like a framework, right? What we've just had today, of course, it can't be the same everywhere. The challenges in Lagos will not be the same as the challenges in Accra or Nairobi, for instance. So take this as a framework and then just adapt it to your local context and see how that works. Having this session today does not mean that we cannot come to Accra or Lagos tomorrow, to have another learning session from your own experiences. Yeah, thank you. Rukaya.
Okay, I just wanted to have maybe more context about, the lottery process for selection. I know we are out of time, but I just want to know, because it's a workshop that you are sometimes literally begging people to attend. So how do you then say, oh, it's going to be true, selection and all of that?
Yeah, so the report's going to speak to sort of different methods in terms of knocking on people's doors was mentioned earlier, and social media campaigns. The Nairobi report has a lot on that. Any quick thoughts while we're in the room, though, from Nairobi Hub? Yeah, so there's going to be, Sarah, did you want to go before?
No, I'm just saying nothing on my end. Yeah.
So yes, there's going to be so many more questions coming out of that, and we want to continue the conversation and have assets, things for you to use to go back and use. So this is not the end, but of these conversations. But thank you so much to you for attending. Thank you so much to the Nairobi Hub and our presenters. It was really valuable. So a big round of applause to you. And I think with that, we will close and we'll follow up and keep the conversation going. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
guys.
Nina. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.